Hello and welcome to the Knitted Bean podcast. My name is Echo and I will be your host today. The Knitted Bean is a knitty, nerdy, sometimes sweary and fandom related podcast. I cover all of the knitting content towards the beginning and the fandom at the very end. If you're not interested in that, that's okay, you can drop off there. I'm glad to have you back if you're a returning viewer, and if you are new, welcome. I'm really excited to have you here. So our weather has been really hot, but I am not going to complain about it because it hasn't been nearly as hot as like the Pacific Northwest or some of the other places that have been suffering from a heat wave. And I've lived out there during the last heat wave and it wasn't this severe and it was miserable then. Air conditioning and all of those things that are common here where I live because it's always hot in the summer are not common out there. And so I really feel for those people. They're miserable and it's dangerous and it's horrible. So we have had temps around the high 90s to 100s, little over 100. That is not at all abnormal for Montana though. It's a little bit early in the year for them to be happening, but we routinely hit 104 for a week every August. So this is nothing that we are not equipped to deal with. I have central air, as I've said before. All of our cars have AC. All of the buildings and workplaces and places of business around us all use air conditioning because it is routinely very, very below negative in the winter and very, very hot in the summer in Montana with no spring and no fall, which I really hate because I like spring and fall. Those are probably my favorite seasons. But it's nothing to complain about. So I hope that if there's anybody watching this from the Pacific Northwest, that it's getting better for you, at the very least, a little bit better. Today is Wednesday, July 7th, which is significantly later than I would normally record. So we'll just go ahead and address the elephant in the room, which is that I might be a lot more out of breath today when I podcast. I was getting a little bit more out of breath in my last podcast and just really kind of glazed over it. I do have some severe lung problems as well as a whole host of other problems like arthritis and gastroparesis and just too many to name. So that's part of why I don't work. I'm actually not capable of really being up and about or out of the house for more than about 3 hours a day, or I will sleep like 12 to 18 hours to try and recover the energy that it takes to breathe through that. I do use a cane. I often use like a cart when I am in a supermarket or whatever. That's just part of my life. I'm on a lot of medications that keep me going and make it so that I can talk for a podcast. And I was changing insurances. Something happened where the new insurance has to approve my specialty medication that's a biologic, and it just didn't happen. And so I missed an entire dose for like several, almost 2 missed doses now for that. And then also because of the changeover, I had like 3 days where I did not get my maintenance inhalers, and I am so dependent on those medications that it brought me down to the points where I could not speak a whole sentence. Or walk and talk or carry a small object like a purse and walk. So I was not able to record on Friday. I had gotten my inhaler back, but I hadn't had my injection yet, and it just was not going to happen. I love being here in front of the camera and talking to all of you guys, but not so much that it's worth putting me in the ER for. And I will luckily it's all sorted out. I'll be getting my injection later today. So this is me without that, but still with my inhalers. And it's a lot better, but it's not as good as it normally would be. So I'm glad to be back. And I want to thank everybody for the well wishes while I was like, yeah, podcast not coming on Tuesday, sorry. But I'll be okay. It just, part of living life with a disability is like you have to make sure that you have insurance if you're not here in America, you know, and you're lucky enough to live in a place that has somewhat socialized medicine. There's a lot that goes into managing your health when you're an American, whether it's paying bills or making sure that your insurance company covers your doctor or making sure that your insurance company covers your drug. And so in this case, I needed to get the insurance company to cover my drug and a lot of different things. So it can really set you back a long ways. But I wanted to thank everybody for the well wishes and say that I'm feeling better, and by the next time I podcast, I should be feeling great, hopefully. Well, as great as I ever do. So with that said, let's get into the content. It is really hot and I didn't feel like drinking coffee or anything, and I've really been craving iced tea. So I used some of my last of my tea bag, like I have loose leaf tea from a company here in Montana that I really love called Lake Missoula Teas. And they have a tea that I really love. It's good hot, but it makes a great iced tea. It's called Sakura Cherry. And it doesn't have like a fake cherry flavor. It's made with like cherry bark and stuff. And so I actually made a thing of sun tea with that, and I have that in just a cute like Issaquah microbrew glass because it has frogs, and I used to live out in Seattle for a long time and I like frogs and I like Seattle, so that's my glass. I do have both dogs in here with me, so I hope they won't be too noisy. Granny's being good at not licking her paws, but Lex is a little wound up. She doesn't do well with fireworks. It's been a long week for her. She had a couple of very rough nights. We do give her trazodone when we know fireworks are coming. We also like turn the radio on really loud with some hard rock. And then somebody suggested to turn on the overhead fan, like the vent fan on the oven, and we added that to it, and that really helped because it was a white noise. Do you want to say hi, Lex? Ooh, come here. Gotta give me some paws. Gotta give me some help. So it was a rough week for this one, but she's back in action now. Now she's a little hyper. As usual. She's always kind of a hyper dog. So I will go right off the bat and announce that we did have a winner for the inclusion cowl, and that was Tamara from the Craftinated Calf Mamas podcast. I will link her podcast below. She is really fun. She podcasts essentially when her kids are taking a nap. So they're about half an hour, and it's just fun to see what all you can show off in a half hour. So the prize has gone out to her, and she should have received that by now. If you didn't get the email tomorrow, let me know. I know that Aiden did tell me it was sent out. We'll let her stay up here because the first few FOs, or at least the very first FO that I've got, I don't have with me. It's already gone out to its recipient. That was that purple Annie top knot that I was working on for an infant. It came out really good. I will put a picture up here of it. It took me a little longer to knit than I expected, even though it was large yarn, decent sized needles, at least for me, and not a large project, but it was knitted flat in a pattern. And I mean, the pattern was super easy to memorize. But I'm just not a fast flat knitter. That's all it comes down to. And it's not because I'm a slow purler. I actually am a really fast purler. Like, I would say my purling is barely any slower than my knitting. Like, I can knit in reverse stockinette in the round really well, but having to pause and turn my work, pause and turn my work, pause and turn my work, and make sure that that last stitch on the end of the needle was not getting loose was just, that took me like so much extra time that I really didn't think about. You want to go sit with Granny? Keep her from licking her paws. I can hear her over here. No paw licking. So all in all, I mean, it was a great little project, but I don't think I would make another one. Just because, like, if I'm gonna make a headband, I'm gonna do it in the round. and then add an embellishment, because I could make a headband in the round in that size in like an hour. And this took me a couple of days. You had to knit it fairly long because not only did you need to accommodate for the circumference. Sorry for the interruption. Granny is determined to lick her paws. And I know from experience that can be quite loud in the camera, and mouth noises are just something even I can't. So what I was saying is, with the Annie headband, you had to knit it quite long because you had to account not only for the circumference around the baby's head, which babies' heads are not really that much smaller than adult heads, but then you also had to knit enough extra that you could tie that knot. I'd rather just knit it in the round. It would be so much faster. Now Legs is getting in on the paw licking. Okay, let's try this again. I have sent the dogs to go take a nap with my husband. That is what he is doing while I record, because neither one of them would stop licking. So the other finished object that I don't have with me, which I will insert a picture over here for, is the Spring Duo Baby Romper by, and I'm probably going to butcher your last name, I'm very sorry. It's by Sandra Magalise. I will put the name down here because it's just a pronunciation that I'm not good with. I'm not good at reading those very well. I did it in a Lion Brand Mandala Ombre ball, which those come in 150 grams. I used about 95, 96 grams of it, but I did do color management. So I picked and chose, like, I want to start at the blue and I want to go up, and I want to make sure that there's enough blue on both sides to make it look right once it sits on the baby to where the stripe is about the same size, and so on and so forth. So what I have left is not like just a solid 50 some grams. It's like 25 and like 28 where I like took a color out of the middle. So I think I actually like cut into 2 separate balls to get the colors the way I wanted, because I didn't have one ball that had all the colors in it. It was the Mantra color. It's just an acrylic from Joann's. Great for baby knits. It had a little bit of like that chenille feel to it. You know, the yarn that's like furry or whatever. And I don't mean furry like mohair. I mean furry like a soft teddy bear fake fur. And I wasn't a huge fan of that. I used several different mandala styles for this project, and I think the Premier Yarns one and this one were probably my least like favorite. It was really splitty, and I don't usually have a problem splitting my yarns. I'm really precise with my needle. I like a really sharp tip, and it just was really splitty. So, and once it split, it was like fiber optic, you know, like a corn husk. You were never gonna get it to go back together. So I did use some vintage buttons for it. I used a different color on the bottom. I used a brown. I think that was like the only ones where I had that size, and I had 3 of them, and I have, I don't know, like probably 80 of those. There's so many. They came from, one second, I'll show you. They came from what I lovingly refer to as like my button jar. I got this probably 20 years ago at a estate sale, and I've added a few buttons to it over the years, but really it's just a big old hodgepodge of buttons that could go all the way back to like the 60s, who knows. It started out completely full. There's probably actually about this many buttons in it now. So I was to the point where like I've started to like occasionally pick up buttons to add to it. But I will go over in the acquisitions. Somebody got me a treat, and I don't have to do that now. So, and I knit that in the 9 to 12 month size. I think I was originally gonna knit it in the 6 to 9 month size, and then I was like, oh, the pattern is really great. It's a paid for pattern. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but it was not very much, like maybe $3.50, I think, on Etsy. The designer has a lot of different baby sets and patterns, and they all look really good. But I mean, the pattern was great in that it was color coded by sizes and stuff, and that made it really easy. And I got it in my head like, oh, I'm gonna do the green, but the green was not 6 to 9. The green was 9 to 12, and it really didn't matter because I was like, I'm just making it as a gift. So that's what I ended up with. Other notes on the pattern, like it had options. It was really versatile. It's a romper you could make for a boy, a girl, or somebody that you don't know what they want or are having. I didn't do the optional. It had like a ruffle ridge. I will put the designer's picture up here so you can see the other version. It has like a ruffle ridge on it. You can cross the straps in the back. You could do all kinds of different things. I thought about doing the ruffle ridge and doing like a ruffle ridge around the leg because I do know that it's for a girl. But then in the end, I decided that I just wanted the plain look because I really was looking for something that looked a little bit like bib overalls. And if I put a ruffle on, then it wouldn't look like that anymore. It's part of why I did it in blue and green. Or rather, I had the yarn that was in blue and green, and I was then inspired to look for something that looked a little bib overall-y. But the pattern was really versatile, and it was written to be knit flat front and back and then seamed. Then a bunch of other construction techniques to like finish it out and make it look really nice. And as previously stated, I'm really slow knitting flat, so I didn't do it flat. I looked at it and I like finagled it in my head for like how to do it in the round. And I still followed the pattern as far as all the numbers, all the sizing, everything like that. I just knit it in the round. And so when I got to like, the back has some ribbing that's not on the front, and I still wanted that ribbing to be in the smaller size. What I did was I'm using interchangeable needles, so I would knit around the front in my larger size, I would unscrew it, I would screw on the smaller needle, I'd knit around the back in the smaller size in the ribbing, and then I'd swap it out again because it was only like 6 rows of ribbing. It wasn't that big of a pain in the butt. And it made that ribbing look like I wanted it to look. So I would definitely knit it again. I will also definitely not knit it in acrylic because the little jumper straps rolled. Because it's in, I mean, even though it had like ribbing on either side, it has that little stockinette in the middle, they rolled, and normally you would be able to block that out fine, and a lot of times people don't block acrylic, and I don't typically block acrylic because typically it doesn't really need it. I'm not knitting like lace in acrylic for the most part. So there's not, I mean, you block to plump up your yarn, to open up your lace, to like make it grow if it's gonna grow, and to even out your stitches. And with acrylic, blocking isn't really, it's plastic yarn. It's not gonna plump, and it's not really gonna even out any strange stitches. I did want it though to like make that piece lay flat. So I actually went on a big long quest to learn how to block acrylic, which is typically like a steam blocking. I don't have a steamer, so I had to use my steam iron. I did pin it all out and I did that. But I have to admit, like, I was terrified that I was gonna melt my yarn. Let's be honest. I just spent 3 days knitting the shit out of that thing. I don't wanna melt my yarn. So it says to hold it like a ½ inch away, and I definitely didn't. It was more like 1.5 inches. I don't think I blocked it as hard as I could because I was too afraid of killing the yarn and like melting it. So it still roll a little bit, but whatever. But if I did it in like a baby cotton, it wouldn't matter. I would just wet block that sucker and pin it out straight, and it would be done. And it would lay flat and it would look gorgeous. That's the only thing. That said, I think it looks gorgeous anyway, even with the little bit of roll. That's not gonna happen when you put it on because the straps are gonna be pulled kind of tight. I did do the optional at the bottom button band because babies have diapers, and I can't imagine, I don't have kids and I don't want kids, but can I imagine having to take your outer outfit off every time you need to change the diaper? Like, I have babysat lots of kids. I've said before, like all of my relatives and all of my friends, their kids are older in high school or college or late grade school at the very youngest. I've changed plenty of diapers. I wouldn't do it, so no mother should have to do it. Neither should any father. So I was like, button band it is. And it really wasn't that hard to do that extra step that it offered. I lied. I have a third whip that is also not with me. In case you aren't aware, this is going to be the Whip Parade episode. The third whip that I have that's not with me, I will also put a picture over here, is called the Tiny Pants. This is a free pattern by Megan Goodacre, and it was in DK weight. I used a acrylic sweet roll from Walmart in the peaches and cream colorway. I did not do color management on this one. I just got lucky. I did color manage the sweater that I made that matched it, and I'll even put the picture of the little matching set over here because this is really cute. I color managed that to make sure that all of my cuffs and hems and things were in the pink, and then I had color blocking going down, and it just worked out that my pants, the cuffs were in the pink, and I was like, that's fine, I don't need a color block of pink, it still looks good, it's gonna be under the sweater anyway. So because it was matching the sweater, I did make the 0 to 3 months like I did for the Bitty Cash sweater, which is the sweater that was with it. Again, acrylic, great for baby knits, cheap, totally worth it. Probably not something that I would knit a sweater for myself out of. You know, the only acrylic in all the acrylics that I used for the baby knits, the only acrylic that I'm like, I'd knit a sweater out of myself for that was the Lion brand Heartland, and I still really like that. So I have one whip that I can, no, take that back, 2 whips that I can show you. The first one is my Victor socks. So these are all over color work with contrasting heels, toes, and cuffs. I did finagle on my own some little heel tabs for pulling them up. Ankle work, these are in Farmer's Daughters fiber. The April Sock Squad, which I believe was Lone Larch, is the green and white. And then it came with this unnamed mini. The minis never have names. I did the pattern out of the Op Art sock book, which I got secondhand off of Amazon. Because we all know Amazon actually started out as a secondhand book dealer, right? So we'll steal this off my shelf. So it's out of this book, which has a bunch of great patterns. And I am dying to make some more. I don't even like color work, but they were so fun. I think because none of the floats were too long. I had a few floats that were over 5 or 6, and I had to catch my floats. They were so rare and so few in between that it didn't matter. So these are great. I love them. I will say I did them toe up, which is how the pattern is written. I freestyled the cuff bind off, and I would not do that again. I would do the tabby thing again, but I would do it cuff down, and I hate cuff down. But that's just how I would do it because it was such a pain to fold it over and bind it off inside like that. Like, it took me forever and it was not worth it. I just do it at the top and go down. So these are great. I love them. They are mirrored in that no matter how you put them on, they're going to like run into each other and make a pattern, which I love. That's really cool. These are going to be a gift. So even though I freestyled this, I haven't done an all over color work sock before. And even though I did it the way I normally do my color work socks, it came out a little too tight around my ankle. And I'm surprised at that because I have other color work socks that I've done on the same needles, same size, same yarn. But here's the thing. I said I hadn't been doing that well lately, and so my feet have been swelling. And so I actually think that might be part of why, like, I might need to like adjust my size up a little bit to accommodate that. That said, these are going to be a gift for somebody who's gonna love them to death. And I would probably definitely make like this pattern again, and for sure other patterns out of that book, because I just freaking love it. And they're so soft. I love them. They're perfect. Some of my best work, in my opinion, yet. So those are the Victor socks. And that was the Pentler base out of the Sock Squad Club, which I think is 90 merino, 10 nylon. It's either 90 or 85, 15. My last finished object actually was not going to be a finished object. I don't have it on here as a finished object in my notes, so just like bear with me for a half a second, because I was still working on these when I would have normally recorded, like all the way up through even when I would have posted. I just finished them today. These are also going to be a pair of socks. They're also going to be a gift knit for somebody who may watch the podcast. So Taff, if you are watching, I will put a timestamp down below, and you just skip ahead to that if you don't want your present spoiled before they get to you. So these are the Arctic Dawn socks by Tina Koo. And I'm pretty sure I've knit a Tina Koo pattern before, and I think I liked it just as well. So it was a really great pattern, really simple, easy to follow, just some color work top and bottom. I made it out of the Farmer's Daughter Sock Squad from May, which is in the Bear Paw base, which is a yak blend. So it's merino yak nylon. And this is what we've got. Boop, boop, boop. So they just have like this fun color work. I did a short row fishless kiss hill because that's what I always do. I don't remember if that was what's in the pattern. I also did my traditional toe, which is the wedge toe, but that was what was in the pattern. And then I used a super duper stretchy bind off, which is the one where you just like knit, and then knit it through the back loop. And then if there's a purl, you purl it and then keep going. Knit, purl through the back loop. That's like my go-to bind off for any kind of ribbing or like finished edge on a sock. So one thing that I wanted to talk about with these is people and blocking your socks. I block my socks. These have not been blocked. And I feel like you can tell. The color work doesn't quite pop. The heel looks a little dented there versus, you know, and just the stitches, they're not nice and evened out. Okay. Versus the Victor socks, which I have blocked, where this is all nice and flat. The stitches are all nice and even. And the yarn is just immensely softer. Any holes or gaps that you have at the corner of your heel are filled in. I use a method that doesn't really give one anyway. And I just don't feel like that's the case when they're not blocked. And I know for a lot of people that just doesn't matter. They're gonna wear them for a week and then they're gonna wash them and it's gonna be blocked anyway. But I just like that last finishing touch, especially if it's gonna be a gift. I like it to look like a amazing wool sock that you're gonna buy in a store. That is the end of my FOs. That was supposed to be a work in progress. In fact, that was supposed to be my only work in progress because I busted my buns to get all those baby knits done. I will insert a picture here of the pile that I sent off I think it was 3 sweaters, 1 headband, 1 hat, 1 pair of pants, 1 romper, and 1 dress. Oh, and a pair of bloomers. So I busted my butt to send those all out, and then I was like, oh, I need to hurry up and finish my sock squad, because my every 3 months where you post your 3 finished pictures for that quarter has to be in by the 10th. Well, it's the 7th. I have 2 done. Both of those are done. I have 3 days to knit a pair of socks, which is fine. I knit the long socks in 4 days, so I can knit what I'm gonna knit in 2-3 days easily, which is gonna be, and you've seen this before, out of the Summer Sorbet colorway that we got for June. So I need to wind this up and cast that on. I think it's gonna be the summer lace socks. A few acquisitions. I have just a couple. Most of it's not yarn. So I am sending a package to somebody over in Sweden, and I'm going to receive a package in return. We're kind of swapping some yarn from Sweden to yarn from America, things that are hard to get and fun to find. So I went to the hobby store here and was looking at findings because I wanted to make some stitch markers and a progress keeper for that person. And I couldn't resist buying myself something as well because it was on sale for half off, and it was a frog. And if you couldn't tell by the fact that I have Thomas the Frog sitting on top of my camera to keep me staring at the lens, and I have frogs on my glass, and green is my favorite color, I also really have a thing for frogs. So I bought this little steampunk frog, and I have this stuff to turn it into a progress keeper. So I turned it into a little progress keeper for me. So that cost me all of like $1.50, and he's super cute and I will love him. Next up for acquisitions, I said I didn't have to worry about buttons anymore. And that is because my sister was at a yard sale and somebody had a button collection, a button jar for sale, and she nabbed it for me, knowing I like that kind of thing. So I am set for buttons for like at least, well, it's taken me probably 15 years to get that low on the last one, so probably a good 30 years now. Some of them are so cool. There are some fabric covered ones. I won't torture you with all of my buttons, but needless to say, I was really excited with the amount of buttons that I now have, and some of them are snaps too. There's like some bra hooks in there and everything you could possibly want to sew or knit with. So I'm set for life and I love it. Probably not for life, but for a while. So I got the button jar. Another thing that I got is hanging over here, and I will insert a picture of it up here. It's a knitting narwhals print that I've wanted for a long time, and I didn't order the framed version or anything because that would have cost quite a bit more, and I would probably eventually get it for a frame for it, but for right now it's just stuck on the magnet board of my desk here. I really, along with frogs, also have a penchant for narwhals, and so knitting narwhals was just, it very much fit the theme of the room, and it like was something that I could put in here that was just really me. So I loved that. That was by Sadly Harmless on Etsy, and they have all kinds of wildlife animal drawings and prints of them for a very reasonable price in various sizes. And I kind of wish that they did cards, because I would totally get like note cards from them to send out. They have some of the coolest stuff, and I would definitely like to get some more. Like, they have some octopus themed stuff, and my guest bathroom has like a very octopus theme to it. So I would love to get something to go in there at some point in the future. I also got my July Farmer's Daughter Sock Squad. So this is your warning. If you haven't gotten your Sock Squad yet for July, look away now. This is on the Piltner sock base again. It's very purple and pink. Piltner sock pot is a 75-25. I keep thinking it's the 90-10, but it's not. It's a 75-25. So just some mostly white with very light purple speckling, and then a pink off. And I have no idea what socks I'm gonna make with this yet. The last thing that I got was I got a Yarnable, and this is my first time getting a Yarnable. I was really excited because it seems like it has the best goodies of all the yarn boxes. I love my Sock Squad because it's on the lower of the price ranges, but you only get the yarn. Like, you get the yarn in a mini, and then there's like a whole club that goes with it of like entering for prizes and stuff. And that's the funness with it. Whereas like the other ones where you pay, you know, an extra $5 or $10, like you get some goodies with it. And so I was really excited to try Yarnable because, you know, I tried Knit Crate and I just really was not impressed. I didn't like the yarn that much. It felt very rustic to me. All the colors are always solids. Like, there's no speckles, there's no tonals. And to me, it was just very much like commercially dyed yarn. Even though it's advertised as like high quality yarn. And I'm like, well, I could go to a craft store and buy 2 skeins or 200 gram things of commercially dyed yarn that feels softer and has better goodies for the price of a Yarnable. Plus it took like a month for the shipping to come to me, and that was not during like a bad shipping time for the US. Like, it was, I was not impressed. I had to actually email them to get the shipping going after I signed up for it. So I signed up for it on the free trial and was going to keep it going, and if I liked it, and they were like, yeah, you know, your box sends out within a week, and it had been like 2 weeks and I hadn't gotten any kind of notification. And so I sent them an email, and then a tracking number was created, and then it was still a while, another couple weeks before I got the box. And the goodies were just not that great, which is definitely something that I've heard about Yarnable before, but like, I could forgive that if it was good yarn, had good customer service, but it just didn't feel like it had either of those things. And so if I'm gonna pay that amount, I want something better. With Yarnable, I feel like you're paying that amount that you would pay for with Yarnable, I feel like you're paying that same amount that you would pay for Knit Crate, but you're getting way better yarn, hand dyed, fun colorways. I've watched a lot of openings before I decided that was, you know, one that I wanted to test out, and really fun goodies. So I will actually insert here me opening that because it came yesterday. So I did actually go ahead and sit down in front of the camera for just a few minutes and record me opening that yesterday. Hi, this is Past Echo. I am going to take a moment to record the opening of my Yarnable subscription box. It's a really popular one that I've seen a lot of people get, and it seems to have the best goodies. So I'm excited to see what's in it. I have not had any spoilers. So all I've done is cut the tape, and we'll open it together. So it does have some really fun tape. Pardon my light there. I apologize if you can hear both dogs running around. They are very anxious and having a lot of fun. They insisted on coming. So the yarn always comes in a cute little like muslin linen white bag. Okay, this is super cute and I love it. This is things to do before I can knit. Says who? Who says I have to do things before I can knit? Come on, camera. Izzy, quit licking. Hey, stop. They don't want to hear that. So you always get a little share your happy mail card, like a business card that has a scratch off that gets you a discount. And then also has a QR code that lets you learn more about the items or patterns, etc. in this box. Granny, quit licking. I can literally not even record. Oh, because licky paws. He's too cute. Too cute. Too licky. Okay, I'm sorry for being noisy. That's what I get for allowing the dogs in here. Okay, so then we have the rest of the bag, which is, it's like a stitch marker and a sticker. It's a little 4th of July themed, color-wise. Knitting Vibes sticker, which will go on my little can that I use to hold my DPNs and fixed needles. And then it looks like a progress keeper by, I'm gonna guess it's by Clay Cannon. Which is a little rocket popsicle. That's pretty cute. It's a little 4th of July theme, which makes me think maybe the yarn is a little 4th of July theme. Let's see what we got. Ooh, it's blue. Ooh. Summer Vibes. Yarnable. And I did the plush sock. Look at that. Pretty awesome. All right, back to Future Echo. I really need to remember to empty my memory card after I transfer these files over, because I keep thinking that it's gonna run out of memory one of these days because I keep forgetting to do that, even though I have a really big memory card. So before we jump into fandom, I realized that I never really talked about like when I started knitting or what got me into it, other than to say like I started knitting like 5 years ago. And I took a big break because I got my dog and it was hard to knit with my dog around and I was sick. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about like what got me into knitting, well, when I learned, how I learned, and my thoughts on that. So I did start knitting about 5 years ago, maybe pushing 6 now, but I think closer to 5. I learned how to knit in high school. If you're old enough, you will know we used to have class called home ec, which was basically how to be a proper lady, which I failed at miserably. I think I had a C in that class. Like, I did not like it at all. I could not stand it. I took it because I thought, oh, it'll be fun. like I'll learn like some cooking and like crafts. And then it was literally how to do laundry. Yep, how to do laundry. Make sure you read the instructions on the inside of your laundry machine. How to separate the colors from the whites. What to bleach and what not to bleach. What to wash in hot and what. And I was like, I don't really plan on being a housewife that does laundry. Granted, I'm a housewife that does laundry now, but like not in the traditional sense, clearly. So I hate it. But one of the fun things in the class that we did learn was how to knit and how to crochet. And I really liked it back then. I knit a washcloth on, I'm sure, the worst, cheapest knitting needles the school could supply, with sugar and cream, cotton yarn for, back then it was probably $1.29, I don't know. It was really cheap. It was something that we had to supply for the class. And I liked it. It was fun. I liked my washcloth. I found the 2 sticks a little bit fiddly because they were really long. The knitting needles that they gave us were like those full 15-inch knitting needles, which I still have one pair and I still hate. And but I really liked the motion. It was really fun. And then crocheting, I really liked a lot more because it was just a short thing in my hand that like I wasn't gonna poke anybody's eyeball out with it. And I liked the crocheting enough. I think we crocheted a pot holder. I liked the crocheting enough that I went out and I bought like a large size crochet hook and like 6 balls of some cool looking acrylic yarn. And it was cool looking. I kept that for like 20 years. I think I finally got rid of it at a yard sale. And I was gonna crochet like a king size blanket. I got to like a king size scarf before I was like, man, I've lost interest. I'm not really into crochet, it turns out. I liked it because the needle was smaller, the hook was smaller and like fit in my hand better. And I didn't have to worry about like whacking anybody with it. I'm not exactly the most graceful person in the world. So later on in my life, I got married, I had a house, I got a dog. I wanted a dog for a while. I'd always had a cat, but I didn't really feel like I could get a dog until I owned a house because they need a yard, and you're living in an apartment in Seattle. It was like, I can't have a dog here, but I'd love to have one. So when I got a house with a yard and all of that, we adopted a dog from a rescue, and the dog is always cold. The dog is Granny, by the way, Izzy. And this was when she was like 8. We adopted her when she was like 8. And so she was always cold, even in the house, because she's old and she has short hair. And I was not impressed with like the options available for dog clothes. None of them fit good, and they were ugly and they were expensive. Like, I'm not gonna go to PetSmart and pay $20 or $25 for a dog coat. I could buy my own shirt for that amount, especially because like the first time I put it through the washer, which it's going on a dog, of course it's gonna be washed. The first time I put it through the washer, it's gonna fall apart because none of those were made very well. So you hear a lot of knitters who talk about like, well, I got into knitting because I wanted to get away from like fast fashion and disposable clothes. I got into knitting because I didn't like disposable dog clothing. Like, my dog needed a shirt, and any dog shirt I bought her, the seam would immediately come undone in like 3 wearings. And I'm like, it's going on a dog, it needs to be sturdy. So I thought, you know, I know how to knit, like, technically. How hard could it be to just knit one of these suckers? Yeah, so I went down to like Hobby Lobby and I bought some plastic in the round knitting needles, and I Googled on YouTube like knitting in the round and learned how to knit in the round, and I made a dog sweater. And I think that I have a picture somewhere. I don't know if I have a picture of the very first one I made her, which I think she still has, but I'll try and put some pictures up here of the ones that I was making. And so I was just winging it, literally just winging it. Like, I already knew how to knit and purl, and I like did a quick refresher on YouTube for how to knit and purl because I'd kind of forgotten. And I had to do a quick refresher on YouTube for how to cast on and cast off. And I just went with it. So I was literally just knitting like a nice little tube with like 2 little openings for the arms. And I don't even remember how I was making the openings. I guarantee you it was not the right way. Like, I did not know how to make a buttonhole, so I didn't know how to like yarn over, knit 2 together and then yarn over and then come back. Like, I didn't know about that. So I guarantee you they were not made that way. I think it was actually probably like I just split, like you split for sleeves and then came back together in the round later. And then, you know, I would like cast off one on each end to like taper down for a little, you know, part to cover the back where it would still be not all the way in the front, and then start knitting that flat. And everybody around me was like, you know, wow, you like knit a dog sweater, just like came up with it on your own, like how'd you do that? And I was like, well, it's not that hard, you know, you knit with the yarn for a little bit, which I now know is called a gauge swatch, and you just like measure how many stitches you have in an inch, and then measure your dog, you know, all the right places, and then you know that's how many stitches you need to have in those places, and then you just add more or take off more. You know, you either cast on or bind off. And I actually am really impressed that I did that. Now, looking back on that, I'm like, that's more work than I'm probably willing to put into designing my own sweater. And so I liked the sweaters that I was making for her, but I like fancy things. So I wanted nicer yarn for my dog. So I went to like the local yarn store, actual LYS, and I had what I was knitting, and I was like, you know, it's gonna go on a dog, it needs to be washable. And they like explained to me what superwash wool is and like some of the different fibers, and they were like, wow, you're like knitting a dog sweater. I'm really impressed. And so I took from that, and I just really had a lot of fun like buying all these yarns and stuff. And I thought, you know, if I can make a dog sweater, I can probably like, I don't know, make a sock. That sounds really fun. And so then I kind of like dove into sock knitting, and I learned that you needed DPNs for that, and I got DPNs and I hated them. And then I learned that no, there's this thing called Magic Loop, and I tried Magic Loop and I hated it. And then I found 9-inch circular meters, and I was like, oh, I just am gonna knit everything around for the rest of my life, which I've pretty much done. And I kept knitting, and I was knitting just dog sweaters and socks for a couple of years. And I knit one shawl, one fancy shawl that's almost more of a cowl out of some yarn that I still have a little bit left over that my husband got me for Christmas one year. And I was like, this is really fun. And then we got Lugs, and Lugs was so hyper that I could not knit because she would just be like bouncing in my lap, and she would like run off with my yarn. And she was a 4 or 5-year-old puppy because she had come in from the puppy mill, and she had no manners. And so I just couldn't do it. So I just quit knitting for a couple of years. And then when I got sick, after I had some pulmonary embolisms, and I was in the hospital and stuff like that. And then I came home, and I kept trying to go back to work, and it kept failing, and I kept landing back like in the ER of the hospital. So I was sitting around all day, and I was really depressed and really like bummed out that my doctor had said like, look, you're not going to work again. It's not going to happen. Like, this is as good as it gets. Get used to it. I mean, she put it a lot more politely than that, but it took me a long time to get over that. And I was just bored, and my husband's like, well, how come you don't ever knit anymore? And I'm like, because the dog will like take off with my yarn. And he's like, well, I think the dog has calmed down a lot. Why don't you give it a try? You really seemed to enjoy it when you did it. And so I did. I went and I dug back out my knitting. I had it all in a big like laundry basket and bucket. I dug it back out, and I picked up a pair of socks that I was in the middle of for me. The first pair of socks that I actually knit for me and not somebody else. And I was like, I don't even remember what I was doing with this. Like, I I had one complete and the other had toe and most of the way, and I was like almost at the heel, and I'm like, I don't even know what kind of heel I did on this. I didn't record this on Ravelry, and I had to like look around and figure out that it was a fishless kiss heel and what I was doing, like how many stitches I had on there. But I was able to like pick it back up and finish it off. Socks came out fine, and I was like, oh yeah, that's really fun. Okay, yeah, that works good. And then I also had a friend online, Aiden, who owns Undercover Otter out in Amsterdam, who was like, well, I'm gonna send you some yarn as a gift. And I got that, and I started knitting with that, and I was just like, boop, right back down the rabbit hole. And now we have garments and socks and everything else. So yeah, I've been knitting for like 5 years, but it's really more like 3. And I'll probably keep it up because I don't have any new bouncy dogs coming into my life, thankfully. If there's anything else, you know, like question like that you would like to know about me, feel free to drop it down in the comments below, because I have no problem answering them. I just a lot of times think that like nobody really wants to hear, like everybody has a story about why they started knitting. But then I was watching a bunch of podcasts, and I realized that like new podcasts this last week, because I have not been doing a lot of anything, and I realized that no, I still really enjoy hearing each and every one of those people's stories about why they knit, even though I've heard like 30 or 40 or 50. So speaking of those podcasts, I did want to mention a couple. One of the things that I really like about podcasts are the ones who are like really super real, either like no editing, like Needles at the Ready, or like all the editing, but the editing still makes fun of how human they are, like Chevy Roll. And I'm always on the search for like podcasts with like that vibe. So I was cruising, trying out all these new knitting podcasts, and a lot of them I'm like, meh, just not my flavor. It's not that they're bad knitting podcasts, they're not my flavor. I am not that big into the podcast where it's like everything is perfect and this is all going on my perfectly curated Instagram feed. I mean, I try to take nice pictures for my Instagram, but I'm not like whipping out the lights and the whatever. I have a light, I have a camera, I even do like semi-professional photography, but I don't bother doing that for my Instagram. I take that shit on my phone. And so that's not what appeals to me. Like, I don't want to see a person's Instagram where that person feels more like a persona that they've created for knitting, right? And I'm a knitting model kind of thing. Like, no thank you. I just want to see the real you. That's way more fun to me. And I find that those types of podcasts are a little fewer and farther in between, and I think that's because it takes a lot to just like dump your authentic self out on the internet and hope that nobody's like, wow, you're weird. So I came across a couple that I really like. One, and they're both newer. One is called The Knitting Pickle, which is one from across the pond. And it's awesome because even though the accent is different and all of that, and the words that are used to be snarky are different than what we would use to be snarky here in America, it still all comes through. Like, it's okay to freak out because there's a fly in the room. It's, you know, it's okay to like really express who you are. And so that one has been really fun. I binged all of it and I'm now eagerly awaiting another episode. Another fun one that I have caught that I will probably watch some more of is Caroline's Knits with a K. And while I do think that like Caroline is definitely like curating a type of channel and a type of feed for her Instagram, she's still real in that she's talking about like, well, I am getting the yarn as part of a test knit, and I do these things that like pull my followers in and that makes me happy, but I also don't want to like get obsessed on my numbers of Instagram and like be that person. And I do use this kind of yarn because it's budget friendly, and like she's very transparent. And so even though it's a little bit of like really nice shots, and she does amazing like finished object pictures. It's also got that like kind of behind the scenes feel of like, here's the amazing finished object picture, and like, here's the real me that made it. It's also really nice because she's always making things in like a 1 or a 2X, and I'm in like that 2 or a 3X range where like my measurements say 3X, and I think it's because I'm chesty, but a lot of times I end up making the 2X and that fits good. And it's nice to see what those knits look like on a body similar to your own, which is the great thing about Ravelry. You can go through, right, and I can like search and search and search until I find people with a similar body shape to me who are making that and see how it is. But it's also nice to see it like in video and see how it moves. You know, when you lift your arms up, what does it look like? When you bend over, what does it look like? And also to like hear somebody talking about like making a garment in those larger sizes, it takes longer. It takes more yarn. It costs more money. And I'm okay with that. Like, I don't mind having to buy more yarn. I don't mind that it costs more money. I am making a larger piece overall. So all of the people in that line of production need to get like their appropriate compensation for that. Like, they need to be paid for more yarn. They need to be, right? But it's really nice to kind of see that. I'm really interested to maybe one of these days try some of the knitting for olive yarn that she's using in a lot of her patterns, because she's test knitting for them. Just because it's not something that's like readily available in the US, and I always love to do that. And then the last podcast that I watched is brand new. I think there's only 1 episode out, or at least I've only found 1 episode. That is High Fiber, and she's Canadian, and she is as authentic as it gets. You know, she's just chilling with her camera, talking about how she got into knitting and showing everything from start to finish of how she got into knitting. And you know, she has not been knitting very long, but she's doing really amazing stuff and making just really cute tanks and stuff, and talking about the yarn that she uses with it. She uses a lot of acrylic right now because she's like, you know, I don't want to like waste really good yarn, and is also very open about those kinds of things. And then she also talks like a lot about like fit and stuff, and how like it doesn't matter if you're a big body or a small body or a medium body. Like, everybody's shaped a little bit different. So like, yeah, if you got wide shoulders, like she's got wide shoulders, and I have really wide shoulders and a really big chest, and so like where the straps land on the camisole, and that's not like, I've never looked at a camisole pattern that wasn't just sized up or sized down. Like, nobody's ever been like, well, you know, straps sitting here look better on this kind of body, and straps sitting out there look better on that kind of body. So I think it's really cool that like she dives a little bit into that, and she, you know, she's just really authentic. If her dog barks or her dad comes home and you can hear a little noise in the background, she just tells you what it is, and that is what it is. The other thing that I really liked was just the way that she started off. Like, hi, I'm going to do a podcast. I'm going to show you like from the beginning of my knitting to where I'm at now. And I'm going to do it because of this. And, you know, basically like same soup reheated. I was like, that's freaking hilarious. Like, that's the attitude that I want. Those are the kind of people that I enjoy watching. Like, let your personality shine through. I don't want a robot. So those are some knitting podcasts that I have like just recently stumbled upon, and I'm like, oh, these people are new. I'm going to add them to my subscription list, and I'm going to have more knitting podcasts to like listen to and watch in the background while I get my stuff done. Okay, so that is it for the knitting content. If you are not here for the fan fiction, or you just don't enjoy that, that's totally fine. You can skip out right now, and it will not hurt my feeling or anybody else's. However, if you are, or brave and you want to check it out, go ahead and stick with me. But if you've enjoyed the content so far, I would love it if you would give it a like, hit subscribe, ring the bell, or leave a comment, like I said, about, you know, are there any other questions that you have about me as a person, as a knitter, that you're curious about? I'm more than happy to answer them, and I'm curious to see what people want to know. So I will let those of you who want to run away, and I will talk to you later, and the rest of you can hang out with me for a little while more. Okay, so fandom. I have a Gen fic that I'm going to recommend today, which is not to say that it doesn't involve romance, just that it is in no way like smutty. It's called What My Heart Yearns to Say, and it's by Gavilan on an archive of her own. It is Witcher again because I'm just really in a kick. I even went like on a let's go find non-Witcher fics, and then I was like, no, but I really like my Witcher fics. And it is part of Gavilan's Own Voices movement for their New Year resolution, which is just like to be your authentic self kind of on the internet. It's a Jaskier Geralt, which is definitely not like my typical ship, but I really wanted to try it out because I've had some interaction with Writer online, and the tags kind of like pulled me into it in that it's an asexual, allosexual romance, and like that to me is really interesting. Like, it's not a spectrum that I fall on, but this belief that people who are asexual can't be in relationships with people who are sexual is really strange to me, because I think that there can be compromises in pretty much anything. Like, that may not be the most important thing in your relationship, and if that's not the most important thing in your relationship, then there's no reason like why that relationship can't be built on other things. It's a little over 3,000 words. It is a one-shot, and it is extremely fluffy. And it's just kind of the story of like, you know, somebody who is like a very sexual being who is in love with somebody who's just not, and how they work that out and come to the conclusion that like, oh, hey, maybe that will work. I highly recommend it. I will drop the link below as always, and I hope you enjoy it and leave Gavilan a comment. All right, folks, I think that that is all I have for you today. I am glad to be back. I hope to be feeling a little better and not have to do quite so many cuts and edits to take a break for a breather next podcast. And I will see you then. In the meantime, have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on your time zone, and stay safe.